Okay, our final, but not last but not least, we have Mayank Kerjewal, who is actually an assistant professor in the Industrial and Systems Engineering Department and research lead in the AI division. And he's going to be talking about his work on fighting child sex trafficking with artificial intelligence. So, Mayank, welcome.
All right, so let me start by saying how excited I am. You know, we have the entire family over here, and I've never seen it in my time. So this is truly an awakening moment for me. And the second reason I'm excited is because I get to talk to you about a passion project of mine. And many thanks to the Keston family for supporting this passion project. And that project is how do we fight child sex trafficking with AI? So before describing the solution, let me show you some sobering numbers. So usually I like to start with a story, but today I'm going to actually show you some numbers on how serious the human trafficking problem is. Here in the US, you know, we've had more than 40,000 reported contacts. So a contact is a potential human trafficking case reported by the Polaris non-profit foundation that tracks human trafficking activity. Almost 11,000 reported cases. And we have enough data now, if you look on the right-hand side, that we can see that minorities are overrepresented, women are overrepresented. So this is really terrible for society. This is not just a developing country problem, it's happening right here. And we have a chance to try and do something about it. So in fact, it turns out that globally, it's an even bigger problem. So human trafficking is the fastest growing business of organized crime. And it's the third largest criminal enterprise in the world. So it's really a huge iceberg, you know, in society. And if, you know, I don't want to give you more bad news, but I have to. And the next slide. The piece of bad news that really disturbs me, you know, more than the fact that minorities are overrepresented, women are overrepresented, is that children have a very sizable role to play in sex trafficking. So of the 23,500 runaways reported to the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, so these are all US numbers, 1 in 7 are likely victims of child sex trafficking. You look at some of these numbers on the right-hand side, there's been exponential growth in the volume of child pornography. We in fact find that the sex trafficking is shifting to younger children, and the communities are getting more sophisticated. So we have global communities now, which is very difficult because of you know, enforcing, you know, laws and making sure that we arrest people who are doing this and then prosecute them. So it just makes everything challenging from a legal standpoint when we have global communities that are operating. Next slide. So where do we come in? Well, in 2018, we received a very welcome piece of news, and that was that there's this website called Backpage.com that was seized and shut down. So in fact, if you go to Backpage.com right now on your web browser, you'll see this notice. A whole host of federal agencies were involved, DHS, IRS, FBI, and so on. And what they did was that they had enough evidence to show that that Backpage, which claims to be a Yellow Pages website, you know, so it's like Craigslist, is in fact supporting a lot of sex advertisement activity, a significant portion of which does involve children and involves human trafficking more generally. So this is a trial that is about to begin. So this is very much still news right now, and the trial is about to begin. Now, what happened with this was that because of some of our previous work, next slide, law enforcement reached out to us, and the federal agencies reached out to us, and they were very interested in applying AI to find underage victims in all this Backpage data. So this is the hard drive that actually contains a lot of Backpage data. It's something that I keep in my office under very close lock and key, and it contains hundreds of millions, if not billions, of advertisements from Backpage, many of which are sex advertisements. So why would this be challenging? Next slide. I think the first reason is that you don't actually find people on Backpage saying that, hey, I'm 16, I'm 14, I'm 12. What you're likely to find are people stating their age as 18 or 20 to get through some of the checks that Backpage artificially instituted. So you can't trust age metadata in there. The other thing is that this domain is very challenging to work with. I'll show some examples, but essentially it's a kind of coded language, and so for example, you have emoticons like lollipops or hearts or roses, that people use to communicate what they mean, so they don't actually spell it out even in the text. And I think the last and most challenging reason, especially for us as computer scientists, is that we have no way to know whether we're doing it right. So even if we look at it manually, so here I'm not even talking about an automated system yet, but if you show me an ad and you ask me that, okay, is this advertising an underage victim? It turns out that a lot of times we can't make out. So what we have to do is that if we suspect, or there's a very strong reason to suspect that there may be underage activity going on, we give the ad to law enforcement, we call it a lead, and then they have to go and investigate it, and then they come back to us and tell us that, okay, you were right about this, you were wrong about this. And so, it makes training and labeling data just that much tougher. Next. So obviously a very serious problem, but there's a real opportunity here. As you've been hearing throughout the day, we're in an exciting time in AI. There's some magnificent work that is going on, and we can certainly put it to use to try and figure out who the underage victims are and to help rescue them. And so that's kind of been the ongoing work that we have been involved in for the last couple of years. Next. So at a very high level, the approach that we came up with is essentially a human-in-the-loop system, and I like to think about this as a magnifying glass. So on the one hand, you have the raw data, so these are the raw resources that we begin with. It's obviously high volume, high potential, but very rough and raw and your classic big data. On the other hand, you have these domain experts. So these could be law enforcement, it could be NGOs, social scientists, nonprofits. Have worked with all of them over the last 2 years. And these are people who have a very refined model of how this world works. They've studied it all their lives. They have been on the field. They have talked to people. They've rescued people. But you have to use them sparingly because it's not a scalable resource, right? So how do we actually fill in the blanks to make the best use of these two very different kinds of resources? Next. So the very first step, which is kind of the least glamorous, but perhaps the most important step, is data preparation. Next slide. And by data preparation, we have to start from that hard drive, which is very raw data. So if for those of you who are familiar with databases, it's essentially SQL. Hundreds of SQL tables, many of them with hundreds of columns. And so we have to find out what's relevant, what's not relevant. In some cases, where I couldn't understand what the data meant, I had to go to law enforcement. They had to go to the CEO, the former CEO of Backpage, who's cooperating in this investigation, and he would then get the answer back to me. But we had to merge 100+ tables. We had to cull irrelevant data. So for us, these are non-sex ads. And we have to do a whole bunch of pre-processing to be able to do good stuff with it. What you see here is a real sample of this after we've merged 100+ tables per city. And so here you can kind of see that it's a lot of numbers. You have text, which looks very messy. It doesn't look like normal English text. It's a challenging model for automated systems to work with this kind of text. We have categories, which are numbers. These are things like, is it a male escort, a female escort, a massage parlor? What are these? We also have things called search blobs, which have numbers, and some of it is relevant, some of like a phone number, some of it is irrelevant, IP addresses, and so on. Lots and lots of important information. Not always clear, whether we should look at it, ignore it, what should we do with it. And so these are hard decisions. So after we do that, we come to the more glamorous part of this, perhaps, which is the data analytics plus AI. And it's been recognized, especially in this community, next slide, that AI is really uniquely positioned to address this problem. And one of the big reasons is natural language processing, because there's a lot of text data, but also networks. So the idea over there is that if we can find a way to actually link all the different accounts on Backpage together, because of shared phone numbers or shared pieces of information, and if one account is suspicious, then it gives you a higher probability that the other account might be suspicious as well, the one that is connected to it. So you can leverage these connections, these collective methods, to generate leads, and also a more forward-looking agenda, which is that what are the risk factors? Is there a chance that there might be someone who is maybe voluntarily doing this, for socioeconomic reasons, but maybe at risk of being trafficked. So we also want to try and do that. Next slide. And our approach is based on this thing called feature-driven information retrieval, or IR, where the idea is that we want to use a lot of different information sets. So these are everything from emoticons. So this goes back to the coded language. You see the lollipop and the cherries and the heart, and the cherry, for example, means a virgin, which you would not know unless you talk to a domain expert. You also have metadata, which is available in that SEES server. It wouldn't normally be available online, which is age, frequency of posting an ad over time, network effects, which I just described, linguistic cues, which is where the NLP comes in. And so the idea is that we generate all these different rankings, and then we try to combine these ranking into a global ranking. Next slide. And next slide. And now the next thing that we do is we don't just hand this off to law enforcement, because as I said, the domain experts are refined resources. So we do not just want to give them every output of our algorithm and then expect them to go and investigate and then get disillusioned when maybe our outputs are not that good. So we don't want them to waste resources. So what we do is that we have access to certain systems that only law enforcement has access to. Because I work with them, I've been given access to those systems. So one of them is HT Spotlight, which Ashton Kutcher's foundation funds. And so the idea over here is that we look at our top leads, and then we go onto these systems. We search for the most recent information involving an ad or a phone number. We look at images to get a second independent sense of whether we're looking at underage victims or not. So a picture can really tell 1,000 words. And then, at that point, we refine a little bit more. Next slide. Maybe that's where you see the arrow going back and forth. And so at some point, when we're kind of ready, when we kind of feel like we have a good set of leads, we give it to the domain experts, law enforcement, to go and investigate. Next slide. And then what happens is that hopefully, and I've had a lot of success with this in the last year, where at least some of my leads have led to investigations, and some don't. And so they come back to us, and we do a post-mortem analysis, and go back and forth again, what went wrong, what didn't go wrong, what was misleading, and so on. And then the whole loop continues again. So that's why it's a human in the loop, because at this point you want to do this again for a different city, for that same city, but maybe more challenging leads that you can find. And so it's really an ongoing process. Next slide. And this is what leads me to where we stand today. Next slide. So right now, we have multiple child trafficking cases already under investigation in LA County and Phoenix. The trial is obviously about to begin, so we'll see a lot more in that coming up. And I am readying the infrastructure right now for nationwide lead generation. So this means that because these are federal agencies, they have wide jurisdiction, so we're not limited to state agencies. And so we are really readying this for a large-scale nationwide lead generation, where we can give them many leads of underage victims over the entire country. Next slide. On the more scientific front, we're trying to understand what human trafficking is, what the online sex economy looks like, what the industry looks like. Since I can't publish yet on US data, I will be able to once the trial gets done. I'm focusing on other countries like the UK. And just this simple graph that you see here is showing you the number of accounts and the number of ads posted by that account on the x-axis. And you can see that there are some accounts, if you look way to the right, there are some accounts that post a lot of ads. So the question is, what are these? Are these mafia organizations? Are these organizations that span the UK and the EU? We found a ring where there were Brazilians who were being smuggled into the UK. So we have these cases that we actually flag in an article that is currently under review. Next slide. And I think a very other important part of this is really outreach and coalition building. We can't do this alone because it's a global problem. We need to sustain this indefinitely. And so I really make it a point to always go and talk to anyone who might be able to help, no matter how slim the chances. So for example, last September, I was invited to the Concordia Summit, which is co-held with the UN General Assembly in New York. And we spoke to some VC, some venture capitalists. We spoke to some people in business who want to be more involved in this and who want to use AI to combat online sex abuse. And their inputs were very important. And so, this is the kind of thing. And then I've been to India, next slide, where I've been speaking to some law enforcement and nonprofits in India, trying to get this rolling in the developing countries as well. And so it's really ongoing, but we hope that we can turn this into a global initiative down the line. And then the other thing that we are working on is finding victims through NCMEC leads. So I mentioned NCMEC earlier, the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, and they have a lot of leads on these runaways and these children who have gone missing. And so we want to try and help them do more investigations on those cases, because 1 in 7 are being trafficked sexually. And so we're working with them through law enforcement. Next slide. Where we're trying to right now build a smart lookup system using all this data, where we can just use all the NCMEC data, put it into our smart lookup system and see if there's any data that connects with our Backpage data, and then maybe try and reopen some investigations. So that's where I'll stop. So this is kind of what the architecture looks like and what we're trying to build. And with that, I again want to thank the Keston family for really supporting this project. And we hope that we can have a lot of that a lot of social good comes out of some of the technology that we are building here. Thank you.
Hi, Mayank. This is Priyatham from ISI Arlington office. You focused a lot on a particular website, thebackpage.com. I don't know. You're probably the expert on this, so I'll ask you. What about the trafficking that typically takes place through the dark web, which kind of is probably another area where a lot of these, which probably hosts a lot of such data. Do you have any specific approach for that?
The short answer is no, but I can give you a little bit of history on where we saw that. So we first started working on this through the DARPA MEMEX project. And so that's kind of when I was hired, then that was the project that we were working on. And there was a component to that project that DARPA was looking at, some other teams that were trying to look at the dark web and that built systems for the dark web. Since then, we haven't specifically looked at the dark web in our group. And I think one reason is that the data is much more sensitive, because usually it's related to very explicit child images. And so we're talking actual child pornography, and not just something that might be underage trafficking, but really something which is much more explicit and much more disturbing. So it can't, even being in possession of that is illegal. And so, it requires jumping through a lot of hoops, and it's not really feasible, I think, in a university environment. And so the answer to that is that it is a challenging problem. One of the ways in which we might be able to help is that I have been asked to take this system and present it before the Department of Justice. If it becomes an approved workflow in the Department of Justice, and there's a very high probability that it will be, then they might be able to use it when we transition it to them to work on dark web data that they have seized. But it's unlikely that I will get to work directly on that. And and that's just the way it is. I think that there are many challenges on the open web, including Backpage, that we can also deal with. So we are focusing on that, not the dark web. But yeah, very big problem.